And thank you for joining us on PM Express tonight. You may have heard the story about the scramble for MMDCE positions. So we're going to be trying to see if we could interrogate the balance between the politics over quality. And that's a question mark because there's many who are looking at this in terms of the sheer numbers going in. The party doing an interview of these applicants and how do we balance the politics with the quality, because we need that at the local government assembly level, the local government level, where governance really starts for you, the people. What are the numbers? We're talking about over 1,300 applications for 260 vacancies. That is quite some ratio there, as you begin to appreciate huge numbers. And what really is accounting for all this interest? I want to break down for you what we know in some of the regions. In the Ashanti region, for example, we count as many as 263 applications for just over 40 vacancies. Now, they are in the KMA alone, just one position. There's 9 applicants. There are 9 applicants who've put forward their interest in this, and we put together a graph for you for Central Region, right? So there are 22 assemblies in the Central Region, and there are as many as 181 applications. I mean, just sheer numbers of people. And these are party, MPP activists, people who believe that they've paid their dues to the party, that have put forward the applications for consideration, right? I mean, to what extent do these individuals really qualify in terms of the quality and, of course, the criteria, that the basic criteria that the law sets for them to get in and be considered for a appointment as a DCE and MCE, or the whole range of local government heads in this particular area. We'll look at that. And if you look at the 5 northern regions, there's 750. And this is a place where you see the overwhelming numbers. 750 applications for 55 positions that are available in the 5 regions. There's a very interesting case of a father, a mother, and a son, all of them filing to contest in the Garu area there. And so somebody is going to be disappointed, definitely, in that family. And all of these individuals are individuals who believe that they have paid their dues to the party and should be considered for the DCE position. Now, if you go to the 5 regions, I want to break down for you the numbers in some of the key areas. So over 237 people applied to occupy 15 MMDCE positions in the Upper East region, and then 8 applications in the Savannah region, and then 123 applications in the Upper West region. If you look at the ratios, the number of vacancies available pretty small. There are 15 assemblies, and yet you have 200 people putting in applications in the 5 regions. This is the northern region. And you have in the 5 regions, in the northern region to be specific, 3 out of the 15 incumbent MMDCs have declined to contest their positions. We don't know why that is. We'll get into that when we speak to the party. Let's go to the Volta region. This is not a stronghold of the NDC, of the MPP, by the way, but yet even there, you see huge numbers again seeking to occupy a position of a MC or a DCE. You have applications of 143 people, and yet you have 18 assemblies. Some huge numbers of people will be disappointed, and the party will have to manage this quite closely. I guess many will look at this and say, this is why we have to make that position an elected one. It deals with all these, some call it mess in the system. But this has been the way it's been for a long time. Except that this has come up to public, discussions. People thinking, wow, these numbers are huge. We'll try and put that in context when we speak to the experts shortly about whether this is unprecedented or is simply what happens in terms of the numbers. If you look at the various regions, the other regions I haven't talked to you about, these are the numbers that we are talking about. Huge numbers still, just in comparison to what is available. The key question to ask is, the political party in power, that is the MPP, they are across the country, the executives, interviewing these applicants for, in most cases, 1 seat, 2. In the Ashanti region, KMA, just 1, but 9 people have applied. And they will then put the list before the president. The president will have to now sort of, either consider Is the president even bound by it when the party sends the names? It's a whole complex mix of things that we need to consider tonight. But most importantly, remember that at the very local level, these are the individuals, once they get into that position, must be serving you directly. That's the basic level of governance. And so you need quality there. It's not a place for job for the boys. We're going to be trying to disaggregate these key issues when my guests sit down to have this conversation. So stay with me. Discussions starting shortly on PM Express. And thank you for staying with us here on PM Express. My guest in the studio is Dr. Eric Odru-Side. He is a local government expert. Also joining me is Frederick Odru. He's the lecturer, Institute of Local Government Studies. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. We'll be joined shortly by Freddie Blay, who is the chairman of the New Patriotic Party, because the party is traveling across the country interviewing these various applicants. Doc, let me start with you. Is this how it's always been?
Let me say good evening to your viewers. This is how it's always been, except that it has not come to the limelight like what we're seeing now. So they always do it at the background. At the end of the day, the president appoints his MMDCEs. What is making this year's, what is happening this year new in the minds of a lot of people is the structured process, I think, they've put in place of getting the MMDCEs, having them vetted, and then after that, a number will go to the president will appoint, and then the PR around it is what is making it new. But I can tell you that since 1992, that is how it has always been.
But the numbers, though, a lot of the focus has been on the numbers this time. Do the numbers surprise you? It
doesn't at all. For me, I'm happy because, you see, it means people are beginning to have interest in the local governance system. In any participatory governance system, if you have a lot of people preparing to put themselves up to serve, I think we should be happy about it. Even if they go through the vetting process and they are not able to get it, definitely it's going to be only one person who will get the position. The others have prepared themselves. They have understood the local government system. They are also useful to the society. I also think that because the NPP is going for another 4-year term, many of their followers thought that, look, it's an opportunity for me to also try my hands on the seat. So I'm not surprising. I'm happy because a lot of people are applying, except that the powers that be are expected to put in place a structured arrangement so they will be able to get the best out of the lot. It's like any recruitment process. In any recruitment process, if you get an unwieldy number of people applying, you have to put in a structured, scientific-based mechanism to be able to sieve to get the best out of them. If you are not able to do that, you will lose your focus on the bigger picture and you end up getting the worst. So what I require of them is they should put in place a structured arrangement that would help them, irrespective of the numbers available, to be able to get the best. And this structured arrangement must take account of the real functions of the chief executive. The function of a chief executive is not party politics. The function of a chief executive is to perform the executive and administrative function of the assembly, to be able to supervise the departments of the district assembly. And when we talk about the department of these assemblies, these are departments made up of highly qualified people. The director of education, the district budget officer, who may be a chartered accountant, the district finance officer, who is a chartered accountant, the district legal officer, who is a lawyer, the district health officer, who is a medical practitioner. You are going to supervise the activities of all these people. So you cannot put anybody at all on the seat.
But that is, I guess, where the challenge had come on the back of what is happening. I want to bring in Frederick from the Institute of Local Government Studies on this. But Frederick, because we know that everybody else who's applied now will be an MPP activist or somebody strongly affiliated to the party or believes he's, in essence, contributed and paid his due to the party. Not necessarily people who believe they are best qualified for the position. So isn't that the problem that this arrangement throws up?
Well, on the contrary, whichever way you look at it, you're going to have to rely on the ruling party to select its own members for the role. But the good thing about this present situation is that we're having a lot more people coming forward to put their hats in there to be considered for the position. Hitherto, you would hear of situations that people believe they are qualified or they want to contest, but there is no opportunity. But I've spoken to quite a good number of people who have offered themselves for the position, for these positions, and by and large, there isn't the situation that you see even in when you're going for, party primaries, that people cannot even get forms to buy. This system has been open to everyone who believes he is qualified to come in and be considered. So that is a good practice. So there is a wider pool from which the party can even select the best in the system. Assuming you have a situation that a constituency chairman is receiving the applications and decides that he supports one person, or even a constituency chairman may think that he wants to be the chief executive. So if it is opened up, it gives further room for a lot more people to participate. And then those who are doing the selection can actually, dig into these individuals and find out what they are capable of doing. So I think the current system is better. It is more open. We all hear who is going and who is not going. Of course, there are some ridiculous situations we are hearing about: father, son, and wife going. That's ridiculous. But by and large, I think it's a good process that if we can nurture this, it is a second best to maybe going for a full election. So I think this is better than what we've had for a while.
What have we had before? What has been the practice before now?
The practice where we don't have any open system. There are places that individuals who may have what we may call godfathers, or people in high places. Mind you, the president doesn't know everybody in every district. So the president is going to rely on trusted lieutenants in some of these areas. When you have such a situation over the years, somebody may even go and collect money and give the appointment to a particular individual. Some persons might even choose those they like. Look at situations that you have several paramounts in one place, and one chief is closest to the presidency. Such a person can even go and lobby and give the position. But if we have a wider pool, as we have, although it may be coming from one single party or very few, it's coming for just one side of the political divide, it is better than the system that even within that small group, certain individuals have got the power to impose the people they think they prefer to be in those positions, rather than perhaps the best person who could occupy those positions. So I prefer this in the scheme of things to any others we might have had.
Doc, so what is the legal criteria for qualification to be an MMDCE? Is there any?
Definitely, the law is clear on it. One, you should qualify to be elected as an assembly member, okay, to start with, and you should qualify to stand for a member of parliament. And of course, you should be a Ghanaian. That is the legal requirement.
Qualified to become a member of parliament.
That's right.
That's a very high bar.
It is, but to be an assembly member, you should qualify to be elected as an MP. You should be a Ghanaian. So these are the basic legal requirements. All the others are administrative, and then internal party requirements that you need to meet.
I know you say the huge numbers are a sign that, you have a huge number so you can get the best out of it.
That's right.
But some say it's also an indication of a broader reflection of the challenges in the socioeconomic, standards of the country, where people simply haven't got anything to do. So this is job for the boys. A lot of the boys who, MPP people who feel, well, listen, we haven't, had our share of the pie, have all thrown in their hat. So we have father, mother, son, everybody rushing to it. Isn't there a risk there that we're just going to have what we call job for the boys in this? That the party is going to struggle to really, those who are really qualified will not be too worried about this scramble.
No, I do not see it like that. The party has a lot of people, and NPP as it is, it's not as if people do not have work to do. There are people who are already working. Some of the people who have applied are contractors, some of them are teachers, some of them are accountants, some of them are public servants. They're already working. Except that I think that people have realized that, look, when I serve at the local government level, I'll be able to serve my people directly. People are beginning to also understand the local government system. And for me, it's good. I think we want to see more numbers. My challenge would be if they do not have a structured arrangement to sieve to get the best.
And you think that the current approach of interviewing them by the party is going to...
I think it's not bad at all, because they are doing it at the regional level.
Except that we don't know what criteria they themselves are using, apart from the basic legal criteria for this election. We'll try and hope and see if we can get Freddie Blair on to try and expand for us what they are considering. But that is clearly an issue, isn't it?
No, it's an issue because you do not know. Yeah. But internally, I believe they have their own arrangement, their own criteria that would help them to be able to get the best to become an MMDCE. It's like any organization recruiting their management. They have their criteria, apart from the basic one under the Labour Act. They have internal criteria that they can use. They place an advert in the papers, or they put it in the internal memo wall. A number of people would apply, but how to get the best is a challenge. In recruitment, the process of sieving, shortlisting, interviewing, and getting the best is the most difficult thing any HR person will tell you you do. So I think that they should concentrate on that structured arrangement. Benchmark it with the internal policies and procedures as well as the requirements of the law, and you'll get the best MMDCEs.
Here's a question though. Should the MMDCE position be restricted to political party loyalists? In
so far as the law adds to the function of an MMDCE to be the chief representative of the central government, you cannot bring an opposition person to be the chief executive.
Not necessarily, but you can go beyond the party and bring the best neutral brain.
Oh, definitely.
We see that happen even in government.
Definitely. You can do that insofar as the person puts up the application. But it also depends on the internal guidelines. Assuming internally, as part of the qualification requirement, you should have contributed to the party winning the elections. You bring this person from outside, the person may not have contributed to the party, though the person is qualified. If somebody is qualified just as that person, and this other person has contributed to the party winning the elections, definitely the party will go for that person.
However, that's the challenge actually. So however, the person applies, he's best qualified, but hasn't contributed to the party, but he is the best suited person to best help the people.
That is why we should elect MMDCs. And this is where the election comes in.
Because that's a big conversation I'll come to, because I'll come to that. But I want to bring in Frederick on that question. Frederick, what do you say to that? What do you say to the best qualified theory? As in this case, we have party executives doing the interview. If you, for example, who obviously without a shadow of doubt is probably best understand the local government system applies, and they don't know you to have contributed, I can bet you're not getting the job. I mean, isn't that a problem?
Well, it isn't, because nothing stopped me from joining the party or any party to campaign for them. It is my choice not to be in political office. So,
but must it only be those who contribute to the party? Isn't it in the national interest more than party affiliation and loyalty?
Well, you see, unless we change the law, because I think that in our part of the world it's becoming, and even if you look at our own history in this country, it's becoming very dangerous for people to appoint non-party people because of sometimes loyalty and even the fact that discipline. It's very important. If we practice the system as the law has it, we must respect the rules of the game. If we choose to change the system, then that's so be it. I am all for election. But again, the danger in the current system for me, which we didn't talk about, is why is it that some of the too many people is also not particularly a good sign to an extent, because some people think that you go into public office to enrich themselves. Some people think that if you are in holding a public office, you are there to serve a parochial interest. Those are things that we need to speak clearly about and ensure that people don't go in with that perception. I mean, there was a case that somebody in the Eastern region was accusing an MC that the individual is prepared to put it in P. That the person is stingy. Why is the person stingy? Because the person is not giving out money to people as they expect. But these are the things that lead to corruption in office. If people are misusing public funds, then it's going to lead to all the bad things we are all talking against. So if an individual who has this perception that I'm going to contest the sitting chief executive because I believe he's stingy, and that person succeeds to come into office, what is that person going to do? They are going to enrich themselves. They are going to try to, throwing away money where they shouldn't be. So these are critical issues we must also address in the whole scheme of things.
The ranking member on the local government committee in Parliament has been today speaking on what we've been talking about his own concerns about the current arrangement. Nilanti van der Poy, who himself used to be the local government minister, offers some interesting perspective today. I want to play it, and then I'll come and get reactions from you on this. Listen to Nilanti van der Poy speaking in Parliament to my colleague, Parker Wilson.
Let me first say that I'm not surprised, because the impression has been created as if that position is just for anyone. We've had numbers before during the tenure of Professor Mills. I was privileged to have been the secretary to the committee that was set up to go around the country and evaluate applications for people who wanted to be MMDCEs. What we did was that we go around, there's a regional committee that does the work and shortlist number of applicants for us. And then we'll also go through, interview the applicants. Some of them do some quantitative work for them. And then after that, we will shortlist 3 for the president's committee for consideration. This time, the numbers are just alarming, because we have demeaned the position such a way that it's become a position of patronage.
Patronage?
Yes, everybody at all thinks that because he's worked for the party, he deserves to be the MMDCE. We are not putting emphasis on qualification and competence. We are putting emphasis on reward. So the position has become a reward mechanism for people who were disappointed in the parliamentary primaries, or who wanted to hold an executive position and couldn't get. I think seriously going forward, we must critically look at, 1, qualification. Because, let me be frank with you, the amount of resources that goes to the MMDAs, and then looking at our new decentralized system, the professionals who are going to work under the assemblies, be it the engineers, the agric officers, the health professionals, the education officers and things, you need somebody with at least a minimum requirement or qualification.
Okay. What should that qualification be?
At least a master's degree.
A master's degree for
yes.
MMDC?
Yes. Because, you see, that person should, 1, assume some confidence in the people he's working with, for them to trust the ability and the competence and the capabilities of the person. Not that this person is knowledgeable enough, at least to some level, he's gone beyond a first degree. That way, it will engender confidence in the people he's going to work with, 1. It also build that confidence in the person himself in dealing with these people. In one of our rounds, we met a DCE who had difficulty appreciating just the small note we gave him.
Well, that's a powerful anecdotal evidence there of DC who can't even read a note. But, Doc, your reaction to that? minimum qualification, masters.
That would be a serious thing to do in politics and governance, because when you look at our constitution, not even the position of a president do we have an educational qualification. In fact, to be a president of this country, you should be 40 years and above, and then you should qualify to be elected into parliament. No educational qualification. So you cannot put it there for the chief executive. The argument we can give to putting a qualification for the chief executive maybe would be for the name. The name chief executive means you are managing an institution on business basis, so like a corporate institution. And indeed, that is how the local government was conceptualized, that local governments will be managed like a business. You have a chief executive who should manage it like any other institution. Government will give you some resources, but you should also have the business acumen to be able to be so innovative that you mobilize IGF to complement what government would bring. And then also, you would have the professional competence to be able to manage and supervise all these departments.
But the person can read and write. How does he have the competence you talk of?
That is, you see, and that is where we have all politicized it. And if we want to get out of this, then we have to put the position up for election. If we don't go about electing chief executive, every 4 years we'll come to this table and we'll be discussing this issue because it is the president who appoints the person.
But you think the masters will be too high, but at least a minimum educational qualification at least must be considered?
But that would also be against human rights. You cannot put it in law. That you should have a first degree before you become chief executive. When the position of a president, the position of an MP, the position of a regional minister, the position of an assembly member does not even require a BECE certificate in law. You can't do that. So what we need to do is to make sure that at least we get the best out of the lot using a structured arrangement.
Thankfully, the chairman, the national chairman of the MPP, Mr. Freddie Blay, has just joined us. Mr. Blay, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
I'm grateful that you joined me. Are you on the field yourself, part of your team, also sifting and interviewing people?
I'm not on the field. I'm in Accra.
Okay. We are curious to know what criteria, how is it going? I'm sure because you're the chairman, you've been briefed. How is it going, and what criteria is the party using to assess these candidates?
Well, it is not an issue of the party deciding to assess candidates. It's the party is helping, yes. Some executives of our party may be observed in the various districts, but this is strictly the president's office, which is conducting the exercise. So we are only, strictly speaking, assisting the president.
So, but you are shortlisting for the president to consider the list you give him.
We suggested, we are making recommendations as well. The party is making recommendations as well.
Okay, but we've seen the various applications that your team is looking in. I was wondering what criteria you're using to sort of make that suggestion on who can go to before the president on a list?
Well, anybody who is interested in becoming an MMDCE, so to speak, will apply to the regional minister. And based on that, individuals from the district and some people from the president's office, and in some cases, our party members also, as I said, will be observers. And they will conduct some kind of vetting to select some members, individuals, for them to be brought to Accra for the president to make his decision as to who is appointed to be the chief executive.
In this process, is party loyalty and party contribution the most important, at least, basic factor in the process?
It's quite important so far as we are concerned, but that is not the main criterion. The president has absolute discretion as to who to appoint to be the chief executive of any district.
Okay. I mean, but what do you say to, we've heard tonight the suggestion that this is a process that only is going to lead to job for the boys and not quality.
That I wouldn't agree with you. It's not going to be a job for the boys. And then that's why the vetting committee is in set up. People are going around to interview, to vet, to investigate the qualifications and to find out who is well suited and may be approved of by the various opinion leaders, chiefs, and the community.
Is the president, the president can still, even when you've done the list for him, still decide beyond what you give him, correct? He's not bound by it.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
He's not bound by it. I mean, we just heard from Neil Vanderpoy, who of course is a ranking on the parliamentary committee on local government, himself a former minister. He says your process has led to political patronage, and that people who are getting it aren't really qualified. He said he's even has a situation where people can read and write who are there. Is that the case, and what's your response to that?
I disagree with you. That's his opinion. But it's, if you will recall, it's always been the position of the president and his party, the NPP, that the position of the chief executive of any district, any metropolitan assembly, limit, it has been a position that it must be by adult suffrage. Mm-hmm. And that left to us, we should have asked the people in the district to vote for any chief executive of that district. Of course, that we couldn't carry through because the NDC stood firmly against it. But we've been convinced from all this while that that position must definitely be partisan because the chief executive will have the president and his cabinet to execute policies and programs of the government. But be it as it may, that has not been the case. But as much as possible, we will prefer that those who we will definitely have as chief executive will work closely with the government. That's what has been the case. But definitely it's not an issue of just having a party card. That's why it's been left to the president, in accordance with the Constitution, to choose anybody. At all discretion, anybody, but based on some kind of recommendation that some party members, some executives will also make.
What do you make of the suggestion that we should have at least a certain minimum educational qualification for the people you're considering? And some have said as high as a master's degree.
Well, I will disagree that somebody will suggest that the person should have a master's degree before. I heard the argument that I believe you did or somebody else has just made, that even the presidency itself, it's not required that one should hold a degree and go to school before you are even elected to be a president or become a member of parliament. So why not? Chief executive, if you are good, if you can, at least if you can read, but if you can read and write and can communicate and understand what is happening, and if people like you, if you have some kind of good character and you are very honest, I think you should be qualified or you should be allowed to hold that position.
Has this process in any way strengthened your belief as a party and government that this whole thing should be done away with and replaced with an election?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a great disservice that the NDC does not allow us to put it to the people to vote who they want to occupy the position of chief executive. Now, like you are saying, it's not even being suggested that it is patronage, it's a job for the boys, and a lot of people are lobbying for the position, and it makes it a little difficult for the president. Even as he's even set up a committee to go around, the committees to go around and do the best to make recommendations for him to use. People are still not satisfied. So why not? It would be better for us to have made it easier for the president if we had allowed to put for those that they want to govern them at that level.
We've seen very huge numbers applying. Have the numbers surprised you, considering the limited slots?
I'm not surprised. I'm even rather surprised that they are not even more. Because some people want to serve. Some people want to be there. Some people have various reasons for being chief executive. Some people want to contribute. And they think it will be a very good position for them to occupy, to serve their communities and so forth. It could be anything else. That's why it would have been better if you had allowed people to vote for such executive.
Some say this huge interest is just a reflection of the general state of the economy, that there's so many people unemployed in your party that this is just an escape for them.
Well, if you want even people to become, to go for any position, go to even the army, go to the police service, go to any other job that's available in the country, please, you will see people, a lot of people applying to join or to hold or to be employed for such positions. So it's not surprising that people have also applied to become chief executives. It's not surprising at all.
Is this true that it's a reflection that, all is not good with the economy and so jobs are at a premium?
It's entirely not correct. You know what? In terms of employment, this government has done very well as compared to some governments in the past, in the immediate past, and still doing that. For sure, we can't say there's full employment in this country, but you can't say that at the same time argue that we are worse off than many countries within the sub-region and even in Africa. So I think I agree with you that there is still room for improvement. I agree with you that we still make effort, should make more effort to ensure that people have employment and can feed themselves. But don't make it look like as if it is the worst problem that this country has experienced within our political arrangement.
Mr. Freddie Blay, I'm grateful that you joined us tonight.
Thank you very much.
I want to bring in Frederick on what we've just heard there. Frederick, so let's go back to the point I asked him about, and he disagrees with the suggestion that there should be a minimum educational qualification in their consideration. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's going to be very difficult to set an educational qualification for political office, for as long as the position is political. I mean, elsewhere, where you have a mayor, which is by appointment, that you go in for a technocrat to serve as a chief executive, then there are specific requirements that are put in place. A number of years' experience and all the likes are there. But if it is a political office where appointees are expected to be politicians, it would be totally wrong to set educational, any level of education as the basis for appointment to those offices. However, for as long as this also continues to be appointive, I think the president, or successive presidents, have got the power until the law is changed to at least set the criteria of appointing people with a certain qualification and skill set to those roles. But the challenge is that it's over the period, it's become very, very political. And it's going to be difficult for anyone to set any criteria. Indeed, let us be truthful. If we've had a president who did not even have a first degree, how can we say that we cannot have a district chief executive must hold master's degree? Again, if you look at what is expected of the role, what kind of skill sets do we require from them? I mean, we need to understand the function of that office to even start talking about educational qualification. If we understand what that office brings to bear, then we will know that at least we need somebody of this caliber, which may not necessarily be educational qualification, but somebody who may be entrepreneurial, somebody who would actually know how to bring efficiency and effectiveness into the system. These are the things we need to discuss and ensure that whatever standard we set must fit the roles the individuals are going to play if they come into office.
I want to take a break. When I return, I'll have that big conversation that Dr. Drosai had introduced, which is the solution to the current problem. Freddie Blair agrees the only solution is to make this position an elected one. We've gone that stage. If it's a solution, how do we revive that? And that's a conversation we'll have after the break. Stay with me. My guest in the studio is Dr. Eric Drosai. He's a local government expert. Freddie Blair just joined us a short while ago on the key issues from the party's point of view, and Frederick Odro, lecturer, Institute of Local Government Studies. Doc, so let's have this conversation you introduced about the solution to the problem. Freddie Blair jumps at the suggestion that election is still the best way out. I think if he has the opportunity, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing, rather leave it to the people to decide. But isn't it too late?
No, it's not. For this year, yes, I think it's too late. The current government can continue with the arrangement and the processes leading to the nomination and then subsequent approval of the chief executive. But then they should reintroduce the policy of electing MMDCEs. And I think I saw it in the NPP manifesto that if a national consensus is built, they may want to reintroduce it again. And I'll urge and then encourage the government to toe that line. They should build a national consensus. Now that we have almost a hung parliament, now is the time for them to build a national consensus on the way forward as far as electing MMDCEs is concerned. Because if you elect the MMDCEs, you get a very competent person. This person will come in with some work program which is aligned to the national program. The person may want to deliver so that he'll be retained. People will think outside the box to look for the money to develop the area. And once we go all out to elect chief executive, then we should as well elect the entirety of the assembly members so we can abolish this government appointee system. Once we do that, we'll have what we call governance or political consistency in our governance architecture, where the president is elected on partisan basis, the MPs are elected on partisan basis, chief executives are elected on partisan basis, assembly members are elected on partisan basis. Then that consistency is there. As it is now, we are deceiving ourselves. We seem to be imposing a partisan chief executive to a seemingly non-partisan local government. The local government is not non-partisan because we have government appointees there. So I think we should go back to the drawing table and reintroduce this election of MMDCEs so that at least once national consensus is built, we'll be able to get good people to lead this country.
I mean, Frederick, the main contention was, should the election be on partisan basis or not? I mean, that was the only sort of thorny issue that led to the collapse of the attempt to, make it elected. How do you resolve that disagreement? And by the way, using your own expert lenses, which is the best approach? Making it political, partisan, or not?
Again, I'd like to also reiterate that I believe strongly that we need to go partisan. But that has also become the contention which we seem not to find a solution to. Some people have made it more or less like an ideological issue. You see, all over the world, partisanship has been introduced in even countries that have come out of war. If you go to the Americas, those are the things that have been used in so many of those countries that came out of war. That is to give people the opportunity to even begin the developmental strategies, I mean, to form political ideologies and come into office and use the political power to bring development. But in our part of the world, we've demonized partisanship. And sometimes I find it quite interesting that individuals who are in office on the basis of partisan election will demonize partisanship. I think that if we go the partisan way, political parties at the local level can develop plans and programs, and they can use that to showcase their competence in government. They may not be the majority party in parliament or have the presidency, but you go to specific localities or in districts and you see what a political party has achieved in those areas. It will serve as a marker to tell the world that, look at what we've done here in this particular area, and if you give us the power, what you can do throughout the whole country. And then that partisanship will also serve to nurture political leaders for the future. Now, everybody comes in and he says, I want to be an MP, I want to be a minister, I want to even be a president. But political parties that are nurtured from the local base can bring up individuals, young men and women, I mean, vibrant individuals who can prove their mettle at the local level, and we can have that kind of system. But unfortunately, somewhat ideologically, we seem to think that, yes, let us only have a non-partisan local level, local level elections. But the fact of the matter also is that even at the local level, there's an attempt to make it partisan. I can tell you that in the 2019 local level elections, I have so many reported cases that individuals were prevailed upon not to contest for assembly member positions just because the various parties, particularly the MPP and NDC, had chosen some people and they were told not to contest if they were members of those political parties. So the parties are there, all right, doing their own thing. But opening it up is what is, we are playing ostrich with. So I think indeed we must go the partisan way because we've practiced the non-partisan for so many years, it's not worked. So what's the basis for insisting that we keep into the system, which seems not to be working for us?
Freddie, thank you very much. And Doc, I also think you also said go partisan.
That's right, go partisan, yes, because it will reduce the winner-takes-all principle, and it will also nurture smaller political parties.
To also get in there.
To get in there.
Yeah.
So that's
this conversation will not end until we return to the table with a proposal for a referendum.
That is
that then, I guess, solves the problem for even the political parties don't want what is happening. But they can't seem to agree on whether to make it partisan or not in the elections. I'm grateful, Doc, for time. Frederick and Freddie Blay. Enjoy the rest of your evening.